All right, so we're diving into the Pi network today.
Mm,
You've sent over a ton of articles and white papers and even some recent updates on this cryptocurrency, this Pi,
mm.
that claims it can mine on mobile phones.
Right.
So clearly you're hooked, and honestly, so are we. So what's the plan for today? What are we trying to figure out about Pi?
Well, we're going to try to unpack some of Pi's claims,
Okay.
really dig into the technology behind it and see if it holds up. And ultimately, we want to see where it fits in the broader cryptocurrency landscape.
So is this the future of crypto, or is this just another one of those fly-by-night things?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
What's really fascinating about Pi is that it's addressing a problem that's been around since the early days of cryptocurrency.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Think about the original vision behind Bitcoin. It was supposed to be this decentralized system
Right.
where anyone could participate,
Yeah.
a real alternative to traditional finance.
Right, because not everybody has equal access, and it can feel kind of rigged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as Bitcoin gained traction, some flaws became apparent. These massive energy-intensive mining operations popped up,
Okay.
and it became incredibly difficult for the average person to mine Bitcoin.
So the system that was supposed to be decentralized became centralized?
Yes, precisely.
Nice.
And all that energy consumption, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly environmentally friendly.
Yeah, not great.
So what happened? Bitcoin became more of a digital gold, something you hold on to, hoping it increases in value, rather than that everyday currency it was initially envisioned to be. And that's the problem Pi is trying to solve.
And how are they going about that?
They claim to have cracked the code with mobile mining.
Mobile mining. On our phones, I can barely keep up with the app updates as it is.
I know, right?
Yep.
But that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Pi uses a totally different method for verifying transactions compared to Bitcoin. Instead of that energy-intensive proof-of-work system,
Yeah.
where everyone's competing to solve complex math problems,
Right.
Pi relies on something called the Stellar Consensus Protocol, SCP for short.
The Stellar Consensus Protocol. Okay. That sounds a bit like something out of Star Trek, but I'm sure you're going to break it down for us.
Of course. In a nutshell, SCP is like a trust-based voting system.
Okay.
Imagine a network where everyone vouches for each other's trustworthiness.
Okay.
Each user or node builds their own network of trusted individuals, a quorum.
So, if I trust you and you trust them, we all basically agree that a transaction is legitimate.
That's a great way to put it. So when a new transaction needs to be validated, the nodes in that quorum essentially vote.
Okay.
And if the majority agree, boom, it's added to the blockchain.
And that's it. No more massive amounts of energy being used just to make the system work.
Exactly. SCP dramatically reduces the computational workload, making it possible to run on your phone.
Wow, okay. But here's my question, and maybe it's a little cynical.
Go for it.
If it's all based on trust, couldn't someone find a way to game the system? I mean, let's be real. Not everyone is trustworthy.
You've hit on a critical point, and it's something Pi tackles head-on with how they've designed SCP.
Okay, I'm listening.
Remember we talked about those quorums, those circles of trust?
Yeah.
Well, they're not just about who you're connected to. They feed into something Pi calls a trust graph. Think of it like a constantly evolving map of connections that helps Pi determine who's reliable and who might be trying to manipulate things.
So the more people using Pi, the stronger that trust graph gets, and the harder it becomes for bad actors to cause problems.
Precisely. It's kind of brilliant when you think about it. Pi is betting that this trust graph is more scalable and ultimately more secure than just relying on massive amounts of computational power.
That's a bold strategy,
It really is.
but is it going to pay off?
Well, that's what we'll dive into next. The economic model they built is another area where Pi is trying to chart a new course.
Okay, so they're really banking on this whole trust thing, but what about the economics of Pi? How's that going to work?
Well, to understand if this gamble pays off, we have to look at how Pi approaches its coin supply.
Okay.
It's like Bitcoin in that it's fixed, but the number's way different.
Different how? How many Bitcoins are there again?
21 million is the cap. Pi, on the other hand, has a supply of 100 billion.
100 billion. Wow, okay, that's a whole other ballgame. Sounds like they want to be the crypto everyone's using, not just collecting.
Exactly. They're aiming to be the everyday transaction coin. But, and this is a big but, with so much more Pi available, how do they keep its value up? Scarcity usually drives value, right?
Yeah, it's like limited edition sneakers or something.
Right. The fewer, the more valuable.
Yeah.
So to combat that, Pi uses a halving mining rate like Bitcoin to balance their larger supply.
Halving mining rate. What's that?
So as more people join Pi and mine, the rewards for mining go down.
So the early birds get the biggest rewards.
Exactly. That's the incentive to join early. But as it grows, the focus shifts from rewarding early users to making sure Pi is sustainable long-term for everyone.
So it's about finding a balance,
Yeah.
attracting new users, but making sure the early ones don't get left in the dust.
You got it. And they've got some interesting ways to do that. Their white paper talks about how the mining rate halves at certain milestones.
Okay.
Like they've already halved a few times when they hit 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million,
Yeah.
then 10 million users.
Wow. So the people who were there at the very beginning are probably feeling pretty good right now.
Probably, yeah.
Mhm.
But this halving can't go on forever, right?
Right.
So to keep people engaged and stable, they've introduced lockup rewards.
Lockup rewards. That sounds like something you'd hear at a bank, not in the crypto world.
It's simpler than it sounds. You mine some Pi,
Right.
you can lock up a portion of it for a set time, basically taking it out of circulation, like a vault.
Okay.
And in exchange, you earn extra Pi as a reward.
So it is kind of like interest, but for cryptocurrency.
Exactly. By locking it up, you're showing you believe in Pi long term, and it helps decrease the amount of Pi circulating, which theoretically could make its value go up.
Interesting. So it's about building that trust and commitment for the long haul.
Exactly. We see this popping up more and more in crypto. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out for Pi when it hits the open market.
Okay, so we've got the tech, the economics. But what about the human side? Who's making the decisions? How does Pi handle the community and all that?
That's a key part, and it seems they've really thought about it.
Okay.
They seem to have learned from the growing pains of earlier cryptos because they have a two-phase approach to governing that's all about community involvement.
Two-phase governance. Sounds kind of complicated.
Not really. Phase one is like a temporary governance thing led by the Pi Core team. It'll last till they hit 5 million users.
Okay.
They're guiding the development right now, but they say community input's important even in this phase.
So not completely decentralized yet?
Not yet, but working towards it.
So once they hit that 5 million user mark, what happens then?
They shift gears into a more community-driven system.
Okay.
Details are still being worked out, but they're aiming for something more democratic where the community has a much bigger say.
Makes sense. It wouldn't be very crypto to have all the power centralized at the top, would it? But where are they at right now in terms of their development? Are they up and running or still in testing mode?
Good question. As of today, October 10th, 2024, Pi is in what they're calling the enclosed mainnet phase.
Enclosed mainnet. So not quite there yet, but getting close.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it this way. They've gone through their beta testing phase, where they were mostly focused on refining the app and growing their user base.
Right.
Then they had the testnet phase, where they could really put their tech through its paces in real-world situations.
Okay.
So this enclosed mainnet phase is like the final dress rehearsal before the big opening night.
Got it.
It's a live blockchain, but there are still some limitations, mainly around connecting with external platforms.
Like what?
Well, you can't trade Pi on those big cryptocurrency exchanges yet.
Right.
They're also still working on getting all their users KYC verified. KYC stands for Know Your Customer.
Oh, KYC. Yeah, I think I've heard of that. It's a pretty standard thing in the financial world, right?
It is. It's all about confirming people's identities, making sure everything is legit from a regulatory perspective.
So even though users can mine Pi and transfer it to this mainnet, they can't actually use it to buy anything yet.
Not yet. Think of this phase as Pi tying up loose ends,
Okay.
getting everything perfect. KYC, a solid blockchain, a whole ecosystem of apps before they go public.
It's a lot to manage. A lot of people are saying Pi could be this big revolution in cryptocurrency, but is it all hype? Can they actually pull this off?
Well, there are never guarantees in the world of crypto,
Right.
But Pi Network is doing some really innovative stuff. Their whole approach to mobile mining with SCP could potentially break down some of the biggest barriers that have held cryptocurrency back from wider adoption.
Especially when you're talking about accessibility and energy consumption, those have been tough nuts to crack.
Exactly. If they can manage this enclosed mainnet phase, keep building a strong community, and actually deliver on their promises, Pi Network might just live up to the hype.
But they've still got some challenges ahead, right?
Absolutely. They still have to prove that their technology can handle mass adoption. They're really counting on the community to get behind them, which isn't a sure thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, they're going to be under a lot of scrutiny from regulators, just like every other cryptocurrency out there.
And let's not forget The world of crypto can change overnight.
It moves fast.
So there's always a chance that a new project, even one that's getting as much buzz as Pi, could just, I don't know, fizzle out.
I agree. This enclosed mainnet phase is critical for Pi. It's the make or break moment for them. The next few months will reveal a lot about whether or not Pi can truly deliver on its vision.
Okay, so what should we be watching for during this enclosed mainnet phase? What are the big indicators of Pi's success?
Well, like we've talked about, KYC verification is huge. They need to make sure their users are legitimate, both for regulations and for the overall health of the network. The more users they can verify, the better.
And you mentioned these Pi apps earlier. What are those exactly? How do they fit into all of this?
Pi apps are essentially decentralized applications, dApps for short, that are built on the Pi network. Think of them as real-world examples of what Pi can do.
Okay.
If they want Pi to be more than just something people speculate on, they'll need to demonstrate its utility.
So like actual things you can buy or do using Pi.
Exactly. They need to show that it can be used for real transactions.
So the more Pi apps there are out there being used, the stronger the case for Pi being a viable long-term cryptocurrency.
That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been putting a lot of effort into encouraging developers to build on their platform. They even hosted hackathons to try and attract new talent.
Smart move. If you build it, they will come. Right.
It's a classic strategy for a reason. A really active ecosystem of apps is a great way to bring in new users and keep them engaged.
It all sounds promising, but I'm sure some people are still on the fence about this whole thing. What are some of the big questions Pi Network still needs to answer?
Scalability is a huge one. Their user base has exploded,
Right.
but can their tech actually handle it if it becomes truly global? We'll have to wait and see.
And what about the million-dollar question, literally? What's Pi going to be worth? I mean, right now, in this enclosed mainnet phase, it doesn't have any value on the exchanges. How will they figure that out when they finally open up to the market?
That's the million Pi question. They've hinted at using a few factors like community feedback, market trends, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But they haven't given specifics. How they manage that transition is going to be a major moment for Pi Network.
It's exciting. So many possibilities, so much potential, but also a lot of uncertainty.
That's what makes the world of cryptocurrency so fascinating, isn't it? The constant innovation, the potential to change everything.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who've been on this deep dive with us today, what's next? What's the next layer we need to explore with Pi?
You know, one of the most interesting things about Pi so far is how much they're focusing on community.
Okay.
It's not just about the tech, it's about the people. They've even got features that are designed to help Pi users connect.
Really? Like social media features, but for a cryptocurrency?
Exactly. It's a fascinating approach, and it might be one of the keys to their long-term success.
Okay, so let's dive into the social side of Pi Network then. How are they building these connections, and how important is it to their vision? So they're really building a social network right into their cryptocurrency. That's a fascinating approach. It's like they're trying to merge the digital town square with like the digital marketplace.
Right?
But how does that actually work? I mean, what kind of social features have they built into Pi?
Well, they've rolled out some pretty cool features like in-app chat rooms,
Okay.
where users can connect with each other in real time. You know,
Oh, okay.
they've got community forums where pioneers, as they call Pi users.
Pioneers, I like it.
It's catchy, right?
Yeah.
So these pioneers can use the forums to share ideas, ask questions, and get support from each other.
Okay.
And they've even introduced a system where you can create social profiles within the app.
Wow, so you're not just mining Pi, you're actually building relationships with other people who are using it. It's like they're trying to create that same sense of community you get in the real world, but in the digital space.
That's exactly it. And it's actually really clever.
Yeah.
I mean, people naturally want to be part of a community,
Right.
a place where they feel like they belong.
Right.
If Pi can tap into that human need to connect, it could give them a serious advantage.
Totally. We're way more likely to support something if we feel like we're a part of it,
Exactly.
especially with something as new and different as cryptocurrency. But how does the social aspect play into their plans for when Pi actually launches on the open market? You know, once people are trading it, does that community aspect still matter as much?
It might even matter more. I mean, think about it. They're creating this solid foundation, this really engaged community that could be a huge driver of adoption once they hit the open market.
So it's like they're not just launching another cryptocurrency into the world, they're coming in with this built-in network of supporters who are already bought into the idea.
Exactly. And that community can spread the word, teach new people about it, and even help stabilize things if the market gets volatile.
That's brilliant. Okay, so to wrap things up for our listeners today, what are the big takeaways? What should they be thinking about as they explore Pi Network and the future of cryptocurrency as a whole?
I think the biggest question is this. What would a truly accessible, universally used cryptocurrency actually look like?
Okay.
Would it be like Bitcoin, with its focus on scarcity and being a store of value? Or would it be something totally different, like Pi Network, which is all about wider distribution, building communities, and actually using it for real-world
It's
transactions?
a million pie question,
Yeah.
literally. And I have a feeling this is a question that people are going to be debating for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but
Yeah?
remember, the exploration doesn't stop here. Keep those questions coming, keep researching, and keep sending us those fascinating sources. We'll be back to dive into whatever you throw at us next.
Absolutely.
Until then, happy exploring.